What do you expect when you hear $1 million home?
Do you want to be in a brand new house at, 3,000 square feet? It has a big garage, regular size lot. Or do you want to be on the water and spend, a couple $100,000 more maybe? 6 years ago, there was only 2 houses that sold over $1 million in Sudbury.
That's crazy.
Which I find crazy. Welcome to the TNT Real Estate Podcast, where we spark conversations that set you up for real estate success. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Tanya, and each week we bring you expert tips on navigating Northern Ontario's real estate market. Whether you're buying, selling, or investing, we've got the tools to help you thrive. You're listening to the TNT Podcast, where we help you sell better, buy smarter, and invest in Northern Ontario real estate.
So today we're going to pull back the curtain on all things $1 million listings in Sudbury. I shouldn't say they're new to Sudbury because houses have been selling for $1 million for a lot longer, over a decade now. But we're going to pull back just to see what our expectations are when you're buying $1 million properties, what you should expect. Is it waterfront? Is it acreage? Is it none of the above? Is it a condo in the sky like Toronto? But yeah, let's get right into it.
Yeah, so let's set the scene with what do you expect when you hear $1 million home? Sudbury, Northern Ontario. What do you expect in $1 million home?
For myself personally?
Yes.
I am a sucker for waterfront. So I would like to see something on water. If it's not on water, it's got to have some sort of acreage. It's got to be big. And it's got to have something unique about it. I think I shouldn't say a lot, but a couple of houses on the market currently and over the last couple of years, they're just like dull. They're dull for $1 million, just like cookie cutter. But I think, my expectations would be something out of the ordinary.
Yeah, I think you need to spend more than $1 million, honestly, if you're going to get on the water within the greater city. Yeah. Without commuting for like an hour or longer, you're probably going to need to spend more than $1 million. But definitely, waterfront, nice finishes. I think people are looking for a unique feature. So whether maybe it's like an awesome landscape setting, maybe you're not on the water and you just have a beautiful landscape setting with a nice outdoor space, outdoor barbecue, kitchen, pool, if you don't have the waterfront. Yeah. And of course you need a giant, massive garage for
all the things,
for everything, right? Yeah. For everything, for getting out, for doing the work you need to do. So yeah. I think people are looking for something that's a little bit unique and good quality as well. But certainly we're seeing properties in Sudbury at that $1 million price point that are perhaps a little bit different. Mm-hmm. What have we seen historically here? Because we talked about, you said, it's been at least a decade now that homes have been in sort of the $1 million range here in Northern Ontario. Mm-hmm. What's the kind of history we've seen? Okay,
so I actually have the stats here. 2019, so 6 years ago, I guess, 6 years ago, there was only 2 houses that sold over $1 million in Sudbury.
That's crazy.
Which I find crazy. Yeah. Fast forward to last year, so the last full year that we can actually pull, there was 60 that sold. So in that 5-year span, it went from 2 houses to 60 houses. Obviously, really quick.
Jump up with COVID, I guess.
And even so in 2019, there was 2 houses. 2020, there was 8 houses. 2021, there was 51. So went from 8 to 51, and then 57, 54. Last year was 60 houses, which was the highest year ever. And then so far this year, we're middle of May right now, and we're at 23 so far. Wow. So it's going to be more of the same, I think, in the future.
Yeah. I think with the general new construction costs being so elevated now, especially like post-COVID with material costs, labor costs going up, in your average new construction home, let's say that is 2,500 square feet or larger, being probably over $1 million, that's really pushed the luxury properties, like the waterfront properties, those that you mentioned, like with acreage and nice finishes, that's pushed them kind of well over the $1 million, right? So it's pushed all of our property prices up, certainly. Yep. But, going with a basic new construction to be about $1 million in the South End and Moonglow, now our waterfront and our luxury properties are like, 1.5 or greater, perhaps?
Yeah. And it's funny because when you're comparing those houses, it's like, do you want to be in a brand new house at 3,000 square feet? It has a big garage, regular size lot, or do you want to be on the water and spend a couple $100,000 more maybe? But you have the waterfront, which is the gold plated properties in Sudbury. So it's kind of those conversations that you're having with your clients. You want to be off the water. And I mean, if it's a little bit older, it might not be brand new, a little bit older, but you can get acreage. You can get 5 acres, or there was one obviously deeper in the south end, sold for $1 million, had 16 acres. A lot of it was, bush and kind of unusable, but
how were the finishes inside that house?
It was actually
nice?
Pretty gorgeous. Yeah, it was nice. So we saw these specific clients the same day. We saw 2 houses, one in Chelmsford, one on Tilton Lake Road. The one in Chelmsford looks like it was like made, 10 years ago. It was created 10 years ago. All the new finishings, the little touches that you would expect. And then this one built at the exact same time, but it was a little bit more dated. It had like the stone look, had like the more earth tones inside. Mm-hmm. It wasn't as modern, but it had like the 16 acres, which was gorgeous. And especially down where it was, it's kind of God's country.
So for that point, like I think a lot of people are looking at lifestyle choices too, right? So when you're spending $1 million or more, you want it to fit the lifestyle that you have or maybe aspire to as well. So if it's maybe not lake living and enjoying boating and all that thing and family gatherings on the lake, maybe it is something like that acreage feeling where you're secluded, but also very close to the city. So, sometimes people are willing to commute and go 40 minutes plus outside the city to get that. But I think a lot of people, we're really lucky in the north that we have such beautiful property within 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes of all the amenities you need, right? So you can go way deep in the south end. You can go even way out in Chelmsford, Zilda area and still be close to like grocery stores and whatnot, but feel like you're in a private setting. Yeah. So I think it's a lot about lifestyle. When people are making this jump from maybe it's their second home and maybe it's worth $600,000 or $700,000 and then they're jumping over $1 million. It really has to check a lot of boxes. And people are going to be a little bit more discerning. So, when you see a property that maybe it's great square footage on the lake, but it's just a little bit too dated and requires some work, I'm finding my clients in that price range, they just don't really have the appetite to do the work, It's just not that it's not within their wheelhouse, but it's like, why don't they just find something that they can move into? Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, you see a lot, especially on the market. And obviously like the days on market for a house over $1 million is a lot more than something at 500,000, which is obviously, pretty normal. But you get those big dated houses that, the current owner had lived in for, let's say 20, 30 years, hasn't done a thing to. It's just a big, usually brick, solid house. But when you look at those projects, the renovation projects, when you're renovating 1,000 square feet and when you're renovating 3,000 square feet, it's a huge difference. The kitchen is triple the size. The flooring is triple the size. Like all of the things it gets very expensive quickly too.
Yeah, absolutely. We had this really nice property in the city center that we looked at. We actually looked at 2 on the same street. One was priced a lot lower, which we compete against you and we lost. And then the other one was priced higher. It was quite nice. And it just needed a few tweaks, like kitchen and maybe some bathroom renovations. But definitely was worth that sort of $1.1 million mark because it was on the water, had actually great waterfront. So we are finding there are some people, let's say $1 million to 1.1, they're willing to do some work to make it exactly what they want. Mm-hmm. But when you're in that 1.5 and up range, it just kind of has to be perfect, has to be totally dialed in.
And I mean, just going back to my stats, last year, the median price so this is just houses that are listed over $1 million. The median price, so the majority of the houses sold at 1.275.
Oh wow!
So almost 1.3 million. Mm-hmm. The average for houses over that range were 1.385.
Wow!
So those are big, usually middle of Sudbury properties that are on water that are getting those large prices, right?
Yeah.
And I think last year, if I'm not mistaken, the highest price something sold for was $2.6 million. So I think there's a few around that $2 million mark, which is pushing up that average price. But
I feel like we've had even more this year that have been 2 million and plus, like quite a few high price properties. I know like if you're from the GTA, this is like nothing because you get basically a really nice house in a subdivision in that sort of $2 million range.
Yeah.
But here you get quite a lot of property. Okay, so another question. Who do we know, who are buying these homes? Who's buying homes over $1 million in Sudbury?
I mean, we have obviously a lot of different sectors, but the typical ones you would expect would be, the doctors, especially around the hospital, business owners that have been, thriving in business for years or decades now. But we have a lot of like the mining sector as well. So the mining companies that are huge, that are titans, are also buying up these properties. But I mean, now that, salaries, especially, public sector salaries are getting pretty high. I mean, could be two teachers buying $1 million house. Like that's not unheard of for sure.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely.
Could be engineers, geologists. Like there's all sorts of people that can afford those prices now.
Yeah. I think maybe it's a bit of a misconception that people are coming from away, right? I think we've seen some people relocating maybe from Southern Ontario where their home values were significantly higher and they're moving here and buying something really luxurious for that same price or maybe a little less. But I don't think it's the majority. I think, like you mentioned, it's probably a lot of local business owners, a lot of local professionals who are kind of moving up that property ladder. They've grown their wealth, they've grown their businesses here, and they're just moving in. I guess, $1 million is sort of that next tier up in properties.
Yeah, especially, I mean, I always talk about the New Sudbury bungalow, but the New Sudbury bungalow we saw I think
we should have a contest. Like, can people look back and say, how many times
I've said
have
New
you
Sudbury
said
bungalow?
New Sudbury bungalow?
It's probably in the thousands now.
It's your catchphrase.
It is. Yeah, I might coin that. Anyways, but the New Sudbury bungalow that we saw last week, 3 of them sold for over $600,000. So when you're selling, if you've owned for 5 years, you're making $300,000 to $400,000 on that property. The only way up is to go $9 or $1 million. Like that, I don't think there's a big enough jump from the 600 to 750.
Yeah, not a reason to move really until you're sort of jumping into that next price tier.
You got to be over 8 typically. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so if somebody's shopping in that price range, it's a lot of money. What kind of questions should they be asking before making the leap and investing?
Well, I mean, especially it's kind of Sudbury centric, but with those rural properties, usually, I shouldn't say usually, but a lot of the time somebody's moving from in town to out of town. So things change, well water, septic, the water softeners and the compression tanks and all the things that go in, the UV lights. So it's a big, and I mean, you can go on YouTube and search these things and get at least a little bit of an understanding, but ask your realtor, they'll hook you up with a professional as well. And you can kind of go through, especially, I mean, home inspectors, these houses, I shouldn't say these houses, but most of the houses you can get a home inspection on, especially over that $1 million range, whether it's a pre-offer inspection or after, during your due diligence period. So get the home inspection. They're going to walk you through the whole house and explain all of these special little things. Mm-hmm. But that would be the major. I would say the second one would be, different mortgage rates. You can't put 5% down. I guess that's just changed. I guess it's up to 1.5 million. But it used to be 5% down for the first $1 million, and then it was tiered up from there.
Yeah.
So financing is a little bit different. The aspects of the house, what it's like to live on 10 acres of property, like all these little things.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of differences in terms of when you're moving rural or even waterfront. Like you mentioned, there's often water, the water source is quite different. One of the things as well, I think a lot of people don't realize is even if your taxes are pretty high in this property, let's say they're $10,000 annually, sometimes you don't have as many services, especially if you're rural or rural waterfront, you don't have that garbage pickup and that type of thing. Insurance is another thing. I think once you get further from the city and a little bit more remote, you have to look at that insurance cost, because if you are outside, let's say where they have fire hydrants and fire hall, and if you're a volunteer in a volunteer firefighter type scenario, unorganized townships, you have lower taxes, but you might have some higher insurance costs because of that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's lots of nuances to buying, not just an expensive home, but maybe if you're moving outside the city center a little bit. So it's very important to do your due diligence ahead of time and have your realtor ask those questions for you and help you get educated on all the maintenance that you're going to need to have for like a waterfront home with well water or lake water and rural property, certainly.
Okay, so we were talking a little bit earlier. You were talking about like different kinds of projects, whether it's move-in ready or what expectations to have when you're looking at these properties. But what would you say is like the price point, especially even for your own clients? What's that price point where they stop having to worry about putting money in, and then getting or should we go a little bit lower and put some money in? What's that kind of price point that you think would be the changeover?
I think it's going to depend on pretty much every client, but what I'm kind of seeing is sort of like 1.1, absolutely put money into it, put 100,000, 150, 200 to get it to where you want it to be. If it's the right lot, right location, and a good house, they're willing to do it. I think you kind of hit probably a bit of a cap at like 1.25 for my people anyway, where it's like, well, do we really want to put in that extra money? Even if it's going to be worth, even if we can pull the comps and say, look, this will be worth 1.5 easily when you do the work. Yeah. They just don't want to. It's a lot of work. So I feel like 1.1 under easy, 1.25 is kind of where things get a little wishy-washy and people want to have, at least my clients want to have something that's more move-in ready. Yeah. Fair. Absolutely. Okay. So question to you, bottom line, do you think $1 million homes in Sudbury are worth it? Would you do it?
Absolutely. So I think I always look, even when we're out with clients under $1 million, it's like, can you buy this home, put $100,000 into it, and then make it worth this home? And I think for most $1 million properties, it's an absolutely, yes, you can. They are definitely worth it. They're good value. Can you take, the new Sudbury bungalow? I'm going to say it one more time today. New Sudbury bungalow at $500,000 to $600,000. Can you double that price tag and get more house or a better lot or more acreage for $1 million? Absolutely, you can. Yeah.
So it's like taking two houses and making them into one, or the value of say two New Sudbury bungalows, and making them into one amazing house where it gives you that lifestyle and that everything that you are looking for.
I think they're great value. What do you think?
I would agree. I think you can get a lot for your money in that price range. I think for myself, it would have to be something spectacular because I already love my neighborhood. I love my house and I don't really want more upkeep. I'm not really looking for that. And I like to have many houses instead of just one.
That's bougie. That's very bougie. Good for you. Yeah. I like it.
Okay, so the $1 million property is worth it. It's definitely become a lot more common here in Sudbury. Like, it was nice to see the analysis that you did the last 5 years to see that trend moving upwards. And certainly the $1 million home here in Sudbury is here to stay.
Mm-hmm. So if you're out there, you want to explore more, feel free to reach out to us. That's what we're here for. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning into the TNT podcast. Please like and subscribe and leave us a comment and share it with people who might be interested in learning more about Sudbury and Northern Ontario real estate.